Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy Friday to you. Major storm continues to tear across the central and eastern part of the country. I'm going to get right to it. There's no mincing words today. We've got a major storm system that's going to impact millions of folks here. There is a cold side of this storm that's going to be developing today, and we are going to see heavy snowfall later today and especially tonight into tomorrow over the eastern Great Lakes and into the Northeast with some sleet, freezing rain on the southern part of it. But the area of greatest concern has shifted eastward. Yesterday it was in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Today we see it across the Tennessee Valley and up into the Ohio Valley with the threat for widespread wind damage and a few stronger tornadoes as well. The area I'm most concerned with is Middle Tennessee, but that expands into the center part of Kentucky and southward into Georgia and Alabama, and maybe sneaking into the western Carolinas towards dinner time tonight. Very quick moving storm. It's going to have a lot of instability with it, but there are quite a few elements of uncertainty still in how everything is going to play out. That seems to be the case of the recent several storms we've had. Nonetheless, it's been a dangerous storm. I'm fortunate enough to say we have not had any major tornadoes with widespread death and destruction so far, and I really hope that trend continues today. But nonetheless, we are at least looking at an enhanced risk for severe weather, and I would not be completely shocked if we even saw an upgrade to moderate. The one thing that's holding everything back is that there are still some uncertainty in how all the ingredients are going to get together. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is not a simple forecast. It's not just here's the map, here's where the tornadoes are going to be. It's not going to quite play out that way, but we definitely do see a pretty good ceiling for some locally intense storms to get going towards lunchtime today, and especially through the afternoon hours across parts of the Mid-South and into the Ohio Valley as well. So, not trying to fearmonger here, but it's a big storm. It's going to impact lots of people. We've got a ton of wind that's going to bring down power lines and trees in some places here in the Ohio Valley into the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic states heading right on through tonight. Our map from Pivotal Weather showing the hazards right now. We have high wind warnings from the Mississippi Delta region right on into eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, and northwestern North Carolina. These are warnings for sustained winds that may go over 55 miles per hour and cause widespread power outages. And surrounding that is an area of wind advisories all the way up into western PA, central Illinois, back into North Texas, where we could have strong enough winds to cause problems with school buses today, with semis, just strong enough winds that can overturn things. So if you're in this region, make sure you've got all of your loose objects outdoors secured. You don't want those to turn into flying objects. A lot of rain going on right now from Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma straight on up into Ohio. We've got flash flood watches encompassing about 7 states. And then north of that, we've got winter storm advisories or winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings from near Chicago and especially south of Chicago, where snow will get going this afternoon, to the southern half of Michigan, northern Indiana, far northwest Ohio, and then tonight into tomorrow across the interior parts of the Northeast, which have had quite a bit more snow than areas near the coast. I think that's clear to everybody. And, we're not going to mince words here and say that this storm's going to be any different. Looks like a potentially pretty big storm across the interior of New England, maybe sneaking into the Boston metro, and especially southern New Hampshire, much of Vermont, northern New York State is going to see quite a bit of snow. And not to ignore you folks in Ontario, you're going to have a big snowfall here as well. In the west, we do have another storm moving in, winter storm warnings over the mountains here. This is nothing compared to what we had earlier in the week, but just some more icing on the cake, if you want to call it that, and the Cascades as well, seeing winter weather. But this is a quieter look than what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. We do have severe weather as well to talk about here. These are where our watches and warnings were yesterday, and almost all of central and east Texas had some form of warning yesterday. Southeast Oklahoma and central and southern Arkansas and northwest Louisiana. This area was very well outlooked. There were tornado warnings. There were reported tornadoes. Fortunately, I don't see any reports of intense tornadoes, but the Metroplex, which has millions of people, all got hit by 70-plus mile-per-hour wind last night. And a lot of power outages and wind damage reported in the Fort Worth area, Dallas, and on northward. A lot of big hail as well, north and west of Dallas, places like Gainesville, Texas, Denton, Texas, right on into southeast Oklahoma. So it was a destructive day. Don't get me wrong. Even San Antonio had a lot of strong winds and large hail on the west side of town. Big military town, a lot of damage done to the military bases in that area. So while we're not talking about a widespread path of large tornado destruction and death, we are still looking at a very impactful storm, and one that'll be historic for some in the Metroplex with all the wind that we saw yesterday, as gusts got up to 80 miles per hour in Tarrant County near Blue Mound. Now, that threat for severe weather is going to continue in kind of a different form today. You can see we do have an enhanced risk of severe weather from about Kentuckiana on down through Lexington and into east central Tennessee and northwest Georgia and northeast Alabama. The tornado risk in here is 5%. It doesn't quite line up. You can see the 5% tornado risk goes back into the slight risk area, but the wind risk is large, significant severe wind with more of these gusts over those 70 mile per hour markers over parts of middle and eastern Tennessee. So Nashville and on up into Lexington and Louisville, you all are under the gun for potentially widespread wind damage later this morning and especially into early this afternoon. There could also be some hail over eastern Kentucky and eastern Tennessee. So a lot of people are going to be impacted by this potential severe weather. We've got 30 million plus people in a slight risk or better, and another 30 million in a marginal risk once you get into the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic parts of Virginia. So this could be another very dangerous setup. And I would not be shocked if we saw more tornadoes today than what we saw yesterday. The ceiling is a bit higher, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit more detail here in just a second. Here's our current watches, and right now things have, I'm not going to say completely quieted down, but we're kind of reaching a minimum for severe weather. There is a tornado warning or tornado watch from Catahoula Parish, Louisiana, straight up through the Mississippi River Valley, right on into Memphis, and all the way up to the Boot Heel of Missouri. However, we are not seeing any active warnings at this point. There are a few severe thunderstorms sneaking into far southwest Kentucky we've got to be concerned with, but I think at this point, locally strong winds, but a lot of rain, and it's still dark out, so rain could cause flooding that makes things pretty dangerous. Now, as the day wears on, we see our low pressure system intensifying and moving through downstate Illinois. This is now, we're looking at 9 a.m. Central and then lunchtime Central, and the threat for tornadoes is going to start to climb across northern Alabama and middle Tennessee into southwest Kentucky when we get to about Bowling Green and on eastward. And then quickly our low ejects northeastward. The winds aloft stay intense. Wind shear picks up and we have more heating of the day in the afternoon. So there will be an area I'm most concerned with strong winds, but also maybe some supercells. And while the threat for tornadoes isn't quite as high in Alabama and Georgia, due to the fact that there's some warmer air aloft that may kind of cap things off a little bit and prevent stronger storms from going, there is an area where if things get going, we could be looking at intense tornadoes. And I think that's going to be east central Tennessee and into northwest Georgia, and maybe even getting into the Atlanta area. And that's going to be in that 3 to 5 o'clock time frame here this afternoon. As we get into this evening, there is still somewhat of a tornado threat into upstate South Carolina, maybe getting close to Charlotte, but Gastonia, Kings Mountain, Hickory, those areas, and then especially across central Georgia. But I do think at this point, as your low moves north and east, this risk is a little bit more conditional. It's provided storms actually get going and can kind of hold their own. And that is still something that's up in the air. This is not an easy forecast. This is going to be something where we don't see a widespread line of supercell tornadoes like you might see in Oklahoma in May. But anything that does get going certainly can go to town here. So just be prepared just in case. I know schools have been canceled in Nashville. I think that's a great idea. Even if Nashville itself doesn't get a strong tornado, there will be intense winds out of this, gusts over 70 miles per hour. And that's going to cause dangerous travel conditions for those school buses. So I think it's a great idea to be prepared. Here's what our radar looks like right now. You guys can see it was very intense over central and east Texas last night into Arkansas and northwest Louisiana. We had a tornado in the Shreveport area. But this line of storms has somewhat kind of weakened, and it's still holding its own. Don't get me wrong, but really it's turning into more of just a lightning and heavy rain event across this entire region of the Ohio Valley. You can see the satellite forecast here shows some colder cloud tops getting going here this morning over western Kentucky, but keep an eye on what's going on here in Tennessee. We have clearing this morning over northeastern parts of Mississippi, northwest Alabama, middle Tennessee. That will serve as some kind of some more ingredients for storms to get going here into an environment that hasn't been overturned by rain and cloud cover. As we get to about lunchtime, you can see there's a pretty decent line of storms and a lot of cloud tops that get going here right across Middle Tennessee into the Louisville area and down into Northeast Alabama. That's the area to watch for severe storms, and a lot of wind momentum as well with this. And there could be some lightning and severe weather all the way to middle parts of Indiana and Ohio. I don't think we're talking tornadoes, but something you definitely have to just be on the lookout for. And then things still get going into this evening as we sneak into northwestern South Carolina. So Oconee and Pickens County could see some tornado warnings potentially as we get to about 4 or 5 o'clock. And then farther east, once we hit the mountains, things do start to wane, but there will still be strong winds aloft, so those mountain areas could get hammered hard with strong winds towards this evening. Here's the forecast radar, and this is the NAM model, and you can see we've got kind of a broken line from near Evansville, Indiana, down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This line still holds its own, and there's some bowing in here. There's definitely some ingredients here for some stronger winds, but also maybe a few isolated tornadoes. I'm going to pull up a forecast sounding here from the NAM model, Northeast Alabama, to show you kind of what it looks like and what I'm concerned with. You see at the lower levels, we have a south-southeast wind, and then that switches quickly into a strong southwest flow here at about 2 kilometers above the ground. A lot of wind shear in here, a very moist, we'll learn to talk, moist profile, and a critical angle of 62, all set up the stage for what could be strong tornadoes. That's possible. It's not saying that's absolutely happening, but there's definitely a higher ceiling today than maybe what it looked like a couple of days ago. Strong lower wind shear, a lot of instability here, and really all we need is to see if storms actually get going or if cloud cover or some kind of warming aloft keeps things from going. So that is definitely a concern today. When you look at just east of Nashville, you can see something pretty similar here with south-southeast winds backing to south-southwest here in the lowest kilometer of the atmosphere. That is directional wind shear. We have a lot of instability. There's no warm nose in here, so it's unstable all the way up to about 500 millibars and the potential for a tornado. The only thing that would keep this from becoming intense tornadoes would be the fact that we have just a shallow area here of instability out ahead of this line. So as this line gets farther east, we have strong forcing, but we don't have strong instability. And instability is you need a hot sunny day for instability. Here you've got some cloud cover to deal with. You've got a lot of other elements, and you've got mountains in play as well, the Cumberland Plateau. But this definitely looks like it'll be dangerous for somebody here. Maybe it's Louisville, maybe Cincinnati, maybe Eastern Kentucky, Lexington, Hazard, Kentucky, Knoxville, Tennessee, La Follette, Tennessee, and even down into north central Georgia. Even Murphy, North Carolina, you got to be on the alert for this. And even Spartanburg and Greenville here right around dark tonight. So as this line comes farther east, it does weaken quite a bit. And we still have maybe some thunder chances all the way into western Pennsylvania early tonight. Let's take a look at lightning flash density here. You can see there will be quite a few storms ramping through northern Alabama, northwest Georgia, eastern and middle Tennessee and Kentucky. This is this afternoon. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3 o'clock central, 4 o'clock Eastern, 5, 6. We still have quite a few storms in the area. We also have a growing risk for a significant tornado. Now, this map looks scarier than what I think is actually going to be the case, but you can see there are definitely some ingredients. Let me move you back a model run. There are definitely ingredients in place for a stronger tornado. This area is showing up at 10 Central. We may not have much going yet, but this kind of indicates that there's strong wind shear, and I think it'll start really ramping up across middle Tennessee here and northeast Alabama and eventually northwest Georgia early this afternoon. So this is lunchtime, and then 1 o'clock Central, 2 Eastern, 3 o'clock. And these are some dangerous numbers in the Lookout Mountain and Chattanooga area. Farther north into Kentucky, those numbers are lower, but we do have stronger winds aloft to deal with, and a pretty high supercell composite here as well for a little while until we get to about Cookeville and then La Follette, and then things do kind of weaken. But the helicity is extremely high, so if something does get going here, it's going to have a ton of spin with it, and don't be surprised if there's a quick spin-up tornado. But I'm really concerned about this area in here as to who could get potentially the strongest tornadoes. The HER shows where the storm tracks have the most helicity. And again, this is kind of a crapshoot, but it does give you kind of some highlights that there will be this area to watch for turning and rotating storms. Farther north, maybe southern Indiana and southern Ohio, and even getting to about Huntington, West Virginia has the risk for severe weather. And I would watch it up the Ohio River here just in case, maybe all the way up to Parkersburg. Athens, Ohio, just places we just need to keep an eye on. As we get over into the Carolinas, there we lose the strongest winds aloft. You see that wind shear kind of shoots off to the north and east, but we don't lose the instability here. We're right in the warm sector. This is Greenville, and you've got a pretty significant tornado chance in Greenville if something gets rolling. Same for getting out of the Lake Hartwell, Anderson, South Carolina, right around 6 o'clock. And then 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, by the time things get to Rock Hill and Charlotte, they are on the wane. But I would not be shocked if this area were in a tornado watch into early this evening. Upstate South Carolina, maybe the Midlands, and into the Charlotte area. And then things do fall apart once they hit the Winston-Salem region, Lexington, Thomasville, those areas. We'll keep an eye on the coast as well. I don't necessarily buy into this, but maybe there's some intense offshore storms as well. You're in better shape if you are in eastern South Carolina, eastern Georgia, and northern Florida, but you're not completely off the hook. Just keep an eye on things as the evening wears on. But this is the area most concerning. Northeast Alabama, northwest Georgia, eastern and middle Tennessee, and maybe south central Kentucky, possibly even up to about Louisville. All right, so let's look at the winter part of this storm, and the NAM is way backed off. Remember this time yesterday, it showed heavy snow in southeastern parts of Iowa and northwest Illinois. Now it says the snow doesn't really get going until about lunchtime here, and maybe it does fall in the St. Louis area, but things don't really get ramped up until about 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. There will be snow developing in central and western PA mid-afternoon, as well as in the southern parts of the Detroit metro and the Chicagoland area. Quickly, things change over, and we do have heavy snow falling, and it will come down hard by this evening across east central Illinois, northern Indiana, southern parts of Michigan, and when you get closer to Toledo, there's probably going to be rain or a wintry mix. Detroit's probably going to be all snow, but the southern suburbs could see mixing. Farther east, we see snow developing in the Poconos and in the Finger Lakes region of New York. This is 7 o'clock. So it's going to come pretty quick, but pretty hard across this area. Southern Ontario is going to get crushed tonight, and then interior New England gets a lot of snow overnight, and especially tomorrow morning. But this storm is moving pretty quickly. It's got a lot of fast winds with it. Everything's getting driven eastward here. And you all can see in Boston area, we could get quite a bit of snow overnight, maybe some mixing, maybe a little bit of rain on the south coast of Boston tomorrow morning, and then back to snow. But this is the NAM model. The other models show this primarily snow. So Boston's still kind of a bit of a crapshoot, and the northwest suburbs like Salem and Beverly and Andover could get hit pretty hard with heavy snow. The South Shore down right down the Quincy and Situate and those areas may get over to rain here overnight tonight, and especially tomorrow morning. Here's our snow map from the GFS. You can see Chicago is going to kind of miss out on the worst of this, but South Bend and especially near Fort Wayne and right up into Detroit, we could see over a foot of snow falling. Half of that's probably not going to stick because of the ground temperature, but when it comes down hard, things will get nasty for the evening rush and people trying to travel for the weekend. So I would advise against that. Toronto, I think a lot of this is going to stick. We're going to see probably closer to 25 to 30 centimeters. And then Syracuse, Watertown, New York, Albany, New York, and into the interior of Massachusetts, we are likely going to see somewhere between 8 and 16 inches, with mountain areas getting a lot more. As we shift farther east, you can kind of zoom in and see that. There's dry air in place in northern Maine, so there'll be a sharp cutoff. Vermont could be a big winner or a big loser again. Southern Vermont, the ski areas, and into upstate New York are going to do pretty well out of this storm, I believe. And here's a look at the NAM model, and you all can see once again, the NAM's got kind of some more mixing issues around Buffalo and all the way up to near Syracuse and Parrish, New York. But here's the area of heavy snow over lower Michigan and northern Indiana, and just south of Chicago, 5-6 inches towards Hammond and Gary, maybe a couple of inches in the city of Chicago. The North Shore is going to get by with very little. It's going to kind of skip by to your east. But yeah, pretty good snow across northern and central New England, except for northern Maine. And the HER model here kind of looks a lot like the NAM. So we'll also talk about heavy rain because it's coming down really hard here this morning in northeast Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, potentially 4 inches in Cape Girardeau, 3 in Sykeston, 3 in Cairo, and quite a bit in southwest Indiana as well, maybe 3 inches in Bloomington. So we do have flooding concerns for sure. There'll also be an area of heavy rain butted up against the mountains here of North Carolina. We always get a lot of rain in western North Carolina around Brevard, Pisgah Forest, but we could see quite a bit more here this afternoon, especially tonight. The Northeast is going to see a lot of rain. Of course, a lot of this is going to be frozen, but maybe an inch or two between New York and Reading and Harrisburg and on down to about Baltimore, lesser amounts over the southern Delmarva into the Carolinas. But yeah, definitely a big rain event, and I'm certainly concerned about more flooding here in the lower Ohio Valley and into the mid-Mississippi Valley as well. So if you're in this area and you're planning to travel, be prepared for problems with flooding. Finally, we're going to crank out the winds out of this storm as that low deepens into the 980s and 970s. The winds strengthen around and behind it, and we see gusts over 50 miles per hour around Champaign, Illinois, maybe to 50 in St. Louis, and low 50s here across the Boot Heel, 50s and 60s right ahead of our storm. Regardless of whether or not we have a squall line that holds together with tornadoes, we're going to have strong winds, 60 to 70 miles per hour in the Smokies, 50 to 60 in West Virginia, right along the Blue Ridge here. Widespread 60 mile per hour wind gusts potentially here for a while this afternoon over middle and eastern Tennessee, and sneaking up into Kentucky and southern Ohio. Carolinas could see gusts over 40 in the bigger cities. And we do see 88 mile per hour wind gusts over western Maryland and eastern parts of West Virginia. Those are the higher elevations there. And then those continue into the overnight tomorrow morning. It'll be windy at the coast here across the mid-Atlantic, and then getting windy as well over the New England coastline. The Maine seacoast could see gusts over 40 miles per hour tomorrow. So whether or not we have flooding and severe weather, we're going to have the wind. So be prepared for that. I think we'll have widespread power outages because of that. And definitely a storm that packs a punch here on March the 3rd. Tomorrow's video, I am going to say goodbye to this storm. I know it'll be lingering in the Northeast, but I'm going to focus more on a big pattern flip that's going to shut down the severe weather and bring back some winter here for the middle of March. And you all have probably seen some maps and graphics that are out there. I will say use those cautiously because 10-day models can vary very wildly, but we are going to see some colder weather and some active weather for the northern and central parts of the country, maybe even down south. I'll talk about that more for you tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you. I hope that you stay safe and that you take these watches and warnings seriously. I pray that the situation is not as bad as it looks on the map. And, you know, it was bad last night, but things sort of did quiet down a little bit overnight, fortunately. I pray that that continues to be the case. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to give all the credit to God, all the glory to God through Jesus Christ, my Savior. And I thank him for allowing me to do what I do, and that is to share this weather daily with you all, to give you meteorological advice as a seasoned meteorologist. Even though I'm on YouTube and not on TV, I still believe this is my calling. It's to help others and share what I can and try to be as thorough and as quick as I can. And I want to share a quick verse, and that's Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And I will say, I am not where I am in life if it weren't for other men and other believers in God helping me become the best person I can be. That is very encouraging to me, and I hope that you see the value in other people, not just from having good morals, but people who are believers in God and through Jesus Christ that can help lift you up. And I want to thank other meteorologists and other weather fanatics that actually know what they're talking about for allowing me to see their insights, allowing me to share back and forth ideas with them, because I just can't do it alone. I don't take the credit for everything I'm doing here. There are other people that have blazed the trail for me, other Christian men who have helped me get to where I am and encouraging me to stay sharp and to stay strong. One of them I really appreciate is my brother Mitch West down in Lexington, South Carolina. Mitch West Weather. Go give him a check if you can. Also, Mike Griffith, Carolina Weather Authority, Jesse Sacker, Sacker Storm Trackers, Sacker, great Christian men who are, some of them are meteorologists, some know a lot about the weather, and I really trust them and appreciate them just pouring into me, and I can do the same with them. And I encourage you to do the same. So if you have any prayer requests, I would be happy to pray for you. If you could pray for me, and not just the success of this channel, but just to encourage me to continue to do a better job and to connect with my loyal followers and to help build up this channel. I just really appreciate that. So y'all, I really appreciate your time today. I hope you have a great Friday, and I'll have community posts and another video in the morning for you. God bless you.